This is Rockschool, and that was one of the new bands at the forefront of heavy metal, Iron Maiden.
Originally known as heavy rock, heavy metal grew up in the late 60s when musicians started to look for new ways to expand their sound.
The music was blues-based, but they abandoned the 12-bar format in favour of open-ended riffs taken from notes in the blues scale.
The crossover between the blues, rock and roll tradition and heavy rock is perfectly illustrated in this next clip we've got of the great Jimi Hendrix. He's playing a Chuck Berry classic, Johnny Be Good, and he keeps pretty much the original until he gets to the solo. Hendrix was one of the most exciting and innovative rock musicians ever, and he helped change the sound of the guitar. So, how do you get a heavy rock sound? Well, the most important thing probably is volume, because you need to overdrive your amp. Guitarists started to overdrive stacks like these by turning up their amps, turning up the guitars to full volume, and they found they could get a lot of sustain and distortion. This is also helped by using a distortion pedal, or a fuzz box as they were then called. Nowadays you can get this kind of sound at a much lower volume if you want. I'm going to show you this kind of sound now in the studio, and with the feedback that I'll probably get from the chord, I'm going to control it using the tremolo arm and positioning the guitar to the amplifier. That was volume. The next thing, of course, is the notes that you're going to use. And once again, it's the blues scale that supplies the notes for the soloing, obviously, but also for riffs, which are very important in HM, and also can give you ideas for chord sequences. We're going to look at riffs first, and I'm going to start off by playing a blues-type riff. Now, I'm going to use the key of E, so here's the E blues scale. So, a blues riff in E. Play exactly the same notes but lower down on the guitar, and just listen to the kind of sound you can get. Now, the same principles apply to chords. You want to get quite a heavy chord sound, use the bottom strings, use downstrokes. This will give you more power. Now, you can play an A chord using these notes, an E chord like this, these chords are neither major or minor because they don't contain a third. Another chord which doesn't contain a third is the suspended fourth. Now, this is formed by taking a major chord, this is A major, and substituting a fourth note for the third. And back to the major. This sounds quite dramatic if you play it like this. Now, as I mentioned, the blues scale can also give you ideas for making up chord sequences. If you were playing in E, the notes of the blues scale would be E, G, A, B, D and E. So you can make up a chord sequence using chords based on these notes. It could sound like this. The next thing we're going to look at, of course, is soloing, because this is probably the way that the guitar is most associated in heavy metal. We're going to look at a right-hand technique first. Instead of picking the strings usually with just your plectrum, if you use the side of the thumb as well, you can actually get to sort of a lot of harmonics from the notes, like this. But of course, it's the left hand that does most work in heavy metal soloing. Last week in the blues, we looked at the techniques of string bending and vibrato. These are still important, but in heavy rock, the solos tend to be a lot more flashy and faster. So we're going to look at a couple of techniques now which can make you appear to play faster. Now, the first one is called hammer-on. Now, if you fret a string and then hammer on a second note without picking the string again, this is called a hammer-on, like this. Almost the reverse technique is called a pull-off. You would fret the note and then pull away with the finger like this. If you add the two techniques together, you can get trills, and they sound like this. These sound quite good on open strings, and you can play one-handed like this. Now I'm going to play a solo using these three techniques and also the string bending and vibrato that we did in the blues programme. Now, effects can really enhance your sound, so we're going to look now at Gary Moore and see the kind of sounds he gets from his effects pedals. What Gary doesn't mention is that he's actually using an echo unit all the time as well.
This is the distortion I use on the Stratocaster to fatten the sound up, and you'll hear the difference if I switch it on and off. This is with that. A more powerful sound on this guitar because of the weakness of the pickups. This kind of makes up for it, boosts the output of the pickups, if you like. This is a chorus. It gives you a kind of a shimmering type effect. This is an octave divider, which brings in octaves below the note that you're playing. So this is one octave. This is a flanger, which is similar to a chorus, but gives more kind of a sweep. That's about it.
Now onto the kit. To match the volume of the guitar, you've got to go for power on the drums as well. And you notice this week we've got more drums, larger drums. We've got as little damping as we can get away with in the studio here. Snare drum, deep, but it's a metal shell to give you the edge. The sticks, heavy sticks. A lot of people use them the wrong way around as well, like this, give you even thicker sound. And the main thing, you've got to hit the drums hard, like this. Now, playing like that all night, you're in danger of damaging yourself. So a lot of drummers put elastoplast on the fingers, all sorts of tricks like that. And it's a good idea to use sweatbands, wristbands, always have a towel handy. And one final thing, have your crash cymbals up nice and high to give you plenty of room for powerful strokes.
Along with the drums, the bass is vitally important in heavy metal music because it provides the drive beneath everything and gives the music its weight and bottom. You can also do riffs in unison with the guitar and stabs and accents and play counter phrases and counter melodies. To start off with, we're going to look at 4 rhythms that crop up a lot in heavy rock.
First rhythm, good straight ahead rock and roll 4/4. Now in a rock band you'd probably play 8 to the bar on the hi-hat like this. Now in HM you make it heavier and more simple, so you end up playing 4 to the bar and the rest of the band goes with you like this. 2.
This sort of music is great for one-fingered bass players because as long as you get the rhythm right, you're going to sound pretty good. We're going to try another rhythm this time, an 8th note and 2 16th notes. It sounds like this. I call it the Red Indian rhythm, right? And we're going to try that with the band playing. Notice that the bass is playing exactly the same thing as the hi-hat.
Now triplet rhythms, they crop up in heavy rock as well, and the blues shuffle becomes the HM boogie. Again, you simplify it and the whole band locks together like this one. 2, 3.
Now for fast tempos, what you should try is getting the whole band to play 8th notes. We talked about 8th notes before. It'll sound like this. Now, apart from the single note rhythms and phrases, you can play 2 notes, 3 notes, or a whole chord all at the same time. Start with the root note, and then a 5th. Or you could play root note, 5th, and octave. Or if you've got the strength, try and hold down a whole chord. Now you can strum it just like a guitar, and this is good for when the guitar is doing a solo because you can fill in the sound. It'll sound something like this. And now, faster than the speed of light and heavier than a ton of bricks, Motorhead.
Right, HM arrangements. Here's one really dramatic trick. What you do, the bass and the drums accent stabs while the guitar plays consonant 8s, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now in the quieter, more gentle moments, when the guitar is doing arpeggio figures, the bass and drums can play a counter melody with accents against that. It sounds something like this. And as a final idea, try learning to play a few blues licks, something as simple as this. Now try playing that with the guitar and with a heavy drum beat. So far, we've been talking about effects. Now we're going to try and put those all together in an arrangement. We're going to start off with a slow tempo, a Red Indian rhythm, with the guitar playing suspension chords, and then the guitar and bass are going to lock together in a heavy riff. And then the drums is going to play double tempo with a guitar solo, and then we're going to do fills, the bass, the guitar, and then the drums, and we're going to end the tune by playing in unison.
Okay, finally onto drum solos. Now, you don't have to be brilliant to play a drum solo, though it does help. The main thing I want to get over is to think musically. For instance, ease yourself in playing a rock rhythm and just alternate 1 and 2 bar fills until you're into your solo, maybe like this. Okay, so now you've eased yourself in. I'm contracting like mad, but obviously you can take longer over it than that. Good thing to do is to keep your feet going. That way it keeps you in time, it keeps your audience in touch, and also it helps out a bit if you get into a bit of a mess. So, starting with the 2/4 hi-hat thing like this. Then you've got to bring it down, give yourself a bit of a breather. So what you do is change the sound, maybe play on the cymbals, show what a sensitive artiste we drummers are, you know, having had to play like an animal for the rest of the evening. Or what you can do is take the snare off and get a completely different sound and do a pattern like this, for instance. Next, put the snare back on and you've got to start building up. The easiest thing to do is to play 16s all over the kit, and you can get into sort of quite African sort of rhythms quite easily doing this sort of thing. And you can get a bit visual as well, because you can get into cross-hand patterns and opposing motion patterns like this. Remember, keep your feet going. Okay, you can go on with those sort of things and build them up. The next thing to do is to bring your bass drum in with the hand licks. For instance, you can get triplet things going, like this one, just by doing... and so on. Or you can use the old favourite, the 4-stroke rough. like that. Final thing you've got to do is get out of all this. So you've got to give the band a really strong cue, because if they don't come in right, you're going to blow all the hard work you've done up till now. So maybe you're doing a triplets thing, and you might be able to give them a cue like this one. Okay, now we're going to have a look at one of the first and best of the heavy rock soloists. Notice how he uses the hi-hat to keep the pulse going, but it's not just his technique, it's his whole musical approach that makes it work. This is Ian Pace.
You can only play flat out for so long before physically you go off. And you also turn the audience off, because once you've blown your cookies, that's it, there's no more left to give. Light and shade in volume especially, is really effective. If I'm thundering around the kit doing a very simple, I'll take a very simple triplet, and then I'll go down and do some fiddly things on the snare drum. The difference can make a solo. The fact that you've actually thought about going from loud to soft. That gives you, of course, that gives you the opportunity then to go back loud again. If you don't go soft, you've got nowhere to go. So I'll be fiddling around something like this. I'll be going... etc., etc., whatever I think of doing next. Now, without that build-up, without the diminuendo, you have nowhere to go.
We're going to finish this week with the Gary Moore Band. See if you can recognise the power chords, the riffs, and the rhythms that the band are using.
Not many introverts in rock and roll, I don't think.